podcast From Art to Industry by Creative Spark Poltava. Hello, we are the team of Creative Spark Poltava, Inna Pahomova and Alexander Ustyan, are launching a series of educational audio podcasts on creative entrepreneurship, created as a part of the British Council's Higher Education Enterprise Programme.
Why are we talking about creative entrepreneurship? We, the team of Creative Spark Poltava, have been engaged in entrepreneurial education for creative industries for several years. During this time, we managed to test different formats of events and educational products and worked with different audiences, from students to artists and successful entrepreneurs.
In the project, we study the UK experience in the development of creative industries and collaborate with the University of Portsmouth. That is why our colleague Giovanna Radulovic, head of the School of Mechanical and Design Engineering at the University of Portsmouth, is with us today. Together with Giovanna, we already have a joint educational course of creative entrepreneurship at the podcast Creativity for Creative.
Yes, our podcast will be based on specific cases on the development of the creative economy of Ukraine and United Kingdom, which is a leader in the development and formation of the creative economy. So, the topic of the first podcast is: Can art make money?
Recently, more and more people in Ukraine speak about the creative economy, creative industries, but I think it is worth explaining to the general public what this concept is, what they have to do with art and culture.
We all know the term culture, which has existed for many centuries. But the concept of culture has undergone significant evolution. It has long gone beyond the purely spiritual sphere and has become an important component of the economy. As reflection of the contribution of culture to the economy, the concept of creative industries emerged. This is another important detail. Art becomes an industry when creativity is commercialized. That is, it enters the market and becomes a culture product.
But these concepts are new for Ukraine. However, the history of the creative economy dates back to the birth of the film industry in the United States at the beginning of the 20th century. At the end of the century, with the contribution of creative industry to the economies of different countries has become so important that this is a need to manage the sector at the national level. The UK has been and remains of the leaders in the development of the creative economy. That's why in our podcast we turn to UK experience. Giovanna, please explain why the UK manages to be a world leader in the development of creative industries.
Creative industries in the UK contribute almost £13 million to the UK economy every hour. Recent statistics reveal that the creative industry sector is growing more than 5 times faster than the national economy. 2 million people are estimated to work in creative industries, with 75% of them outside of London. The UK creative industries are developing new jobs faster than any other sector, despite record employment in the UK economy as a whole. If we look across the past decade, creative industries employment has increased by more than 30%, compared to the UK average growth of 10% during that period. The creative industries are already the fastest growing sector in the UK economy. There is even more potential for future growth. The contribution made by the UK arts and culture industries is measurable in terms of direct impact, indirect value through generated jobs supported by industries that supply goods and services to arts and culture organizations, and the induced impact from calculating the effect of spend by culture industry employees in the wider economy. That includes book publishing, sound recording and music publishing, performing arts, artistic creation and operation of arts facilities, as well as advertising, fashion, film, museums, video games, animations, design, crafts, and more. This makes the UK's creative industries a diverse and interconnected sector that is far greater than the sum of its parts. 1 in 8 UK enterprises were creative enterprises in 2018. And in addition to their great economic contribution, they drive and unlock innovation, deliver significant social impact, and invest heavily in the regeneration of communities throughout the UK. Nowadays, efforts are made by the government and industry to help sector recovery and unlock the sector's growth. This will require even greater action by UK government, combined and local authorities, local enterprise partnerships, and of course, the industry itself.
Well, interesting. And what is the situation with the development of creative industry in Ukraine today?
Of course, the creative industries in Ukraine are under development and a very promising industry. We see how the creative industries have tripled in the last 7 years. Currently, the creative industries create added value of over 100 billion hryvnias, and more than 350,000 people work here. Therefore, this area is an essential part of the national economy. In general, according to some indicators, Ukraine meets European criteria. However, it should be noted that currently domestic statistics on the development of creative industries are incomplete. It is better to consider this situation by sectors. In particular, the IT industry is the largest among the creative industries. It accounts for half of total income and employees. It also demonstrates the highest positive dynamics of development. At the same time, there is a decline in the publishing sector. The audiovisual and design sectors are growing, with the audiovisual sector being the second largest by the number of employees. Meanwhile, advertising ranks second in terms of revenue, but there is a decline in the numbers of employees. The situation is similar in architecture and audio sector. At the same time, libraries and culture monuments are growing due to the increase in budget funding.
Alex, but you have now named among the leaders the sectors in which powerful companies operate. For example, the IT or audiovisual sector, which are also more actively developing in large cities. But the creative industry are not only represented by IT and advertising. We have folk, arts and crafts, visual and performing arts, literature, and they are also developing, but they are not big companies and organizations, but rather centers and individual creativity. While traveling around the UK and exploring creative entrepreneurship, we have seen that the creative industry there are often small companies and are actively developing not only in London, but also in the regions. In small towns, we found many shops where you can see quite interesting things. Giovanna, is that so?
The creative industries in the UK are mostly small companies and micro businesses. Majority of these businesses employ fewer than 10 people. Most creative industry jobs are based in London. Many opportunities are located elsewhere in the UK. There are also large, well-established organizations in the sector. Large companies tend to recruit graduates in advertising, cultural heritage, design, fashion, film and TV, music, publishing, and video games. Many design opportunities are found in design consultancies or advertising agencies.
It is good that people in small towns develop their creative potential, have support, and also successfully monetize their creativity. Do you have special support programs, or what stimulates their development?
Generally speaking, relevant skills and educational efforts to support the creative economy in the UK are present. There is a dynamic and talented workforce, as well as an economic framework to support startup and facilitate networking and growth. Transition into the post-COVID-19 world and recovery of creative industries is the focus. Creative Industries Council set key objectives to protect jobs and secure the pipeline of new talent and career opportunities in the creative industries, while sustaining and improving diversity. To re-establish and grow the UK's international competitiveness and status as a global hub for the creative industries. To propel innovation across the sector as a driver for future growth, and ensure access to investment finance for creative businesses with potential to grow.
That's interesting. Giovanna, is everything always too stable in UK? What are the challenges that the UK's creativity industries face?
Despite the sector's rapid growth, there are many challenges. Since March 2020, most indoor and outdoor events held at music venues, theatres, museums, and art galleries in the UK had to close due to coronavirus. This was a colossal disruption to creative industries. In 2020, the arts, culture, and heritage industries did receive a £157 billion support package from the government in the form of emergency grant Help to Survive. There were ambitious plans to revitalise the industry in 2021. The UK's creative industries are often undercapitalised, and there are skill shortages. They can also experience lack of diversity and unequal access to the opportunities that organisations and individuals need. A typical example is an unpaid internship. This promotes unfair access to those who can't afford not to be paid for their work. This significantly narrows the pool of talent available to the sector that needs creativity and diversity to thrive. Improving the diversity of their workforce is now a particular focus of many employers in this field. The number of students taking creative subjects, such as music and performing arts, has fallen significantly over recent years, partly because of government funding policy emphasizing traditional subjects, including maths and science. This could lead to shortage of creative talent entering the sector in the coming years, potentially slowing down or even stopping growth. But there are new trends emerging. In the last 12 months, 87% of UK households made online purchases. More people are working from home and shopping online, and the new businesses can take advantage of this change in consumer behavior. People are keen to keep fit and use the latest technology to track their progress and goals. 28% of people in the UK considered starting a creative business since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak.
That's interesting. By the way, I came across many cases of how British entrepreneurs in the creative industry have adapted to the conditions of quarantine restriction. For example, a video production studio in Manchester began to take a creative approach, funding the resources needed to shoot commercial projects. They once created a video in which they recorded a video call with colleagues in the kitchen during breakfast, and it was recorded during a video conference. They used these records and content for customers. Thus, the company, complying with the requirements for distances, was able to not put its work on pause.
I remember a case dealing with the Bad Apple Theatre. It is a regional touring theatre company based in the rural area of North Yorkshire. It faced the great challenge dealing with COVID-19 pandemic. To cope with this, Bad Apple shifted from its previous model of theatre on your doorstep to theatre on your desktop. They use Arts Council funding to start an episodic audio podcast which presented its previous shows in a new way to a new audience. The design and value of this new model aim to support the team and create new culture products in the new form.
Of course, these are not the only approaches taken by the UK's creative small businesses. Some have launched crowdfunding campaigns, some have expanded their merchandising activities, and some musicians have turned to live broadcast to the least continue to spread their name and interact with their fan base. But almost all businesses have had to adapt to survive in this new economic reality. And what are the current problems in the creative sector in Ukraine?
The COVID crisis has hit the creative industries hard. Ukrainian artists also had to adapt quickly in order to continue their work. But in the creative industries of Ukraine, there are a number of significant problems in addition to COVID. The most significant are plagiarism and online piracy, due to which the cinema sector and musicians receive less income. Inequality in the market is another significant problem, as creative people are rarely given loans and investments due to the risky nature of their activities. Banks are not interested in lending because they do not have sufficient assets to serve as collateral and cannot prove their financial capacity. Also, creative people cannot often monetize their talent due to the lack of entrepreneurial skills. At the same time, limited creative infrastructure significantly hinders the development of the sector. Unfortunately, we have few hubs, incubators, accelerators just for culture projects. In the IT sector, this problem is more or less solved. The objective restriction is the low standard living in Ukraine, which significantly limits the demand on creative products. The way out of this situation could be export, but the Ukrainian culture product is mostly focused on the domestic market. Our creative entrepreneurs and artists often do not understand the needs and demands of consumers abroad and do not have sufficient capacity to enter foreign markets.
Alex, wait, stop. Do you want to say that everything is so bad in Ukraine?
No, positive changes have taken place in recent years. The government is taking real steps to support creative industries. Let's take, for example, the famous COVID-1000. This is an effective initiative to support the creative industries that have suffered the most from quarantine restrictions. A good support tool is the Ukrainian Culture Foundation, which funds culture initiatives. In December 2021, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the concept of development of folks, arts and crafts. The state raises the issue of development of creative industries at industry forums, in particular Creative Ukraine. We observe an increase in the number of Ukrainian films from year to year, the emergence of new musical groups. Clothes of Ukrainian designers are becoming more and more popular. It is worth noting the significant support of foreign partners, and in particular the project Culture and Creativity, Creative Europe of the European Union. Also British Council programs, including Creative Enterprise and Creative Spark, are worth mentioning.
Yes, Ukraine is actively studying the UK experience. Thanks to the largest program, Ukrainian universities have begun to create an educational product aimed at acquiring businesses skills for the creative sector. Also, since 2020, the Creative Spark Policy Forum, which is a platform for the formation of strategic approaches to strengthening the role of the university in the development of creative industry, is held annually. At the initiative of the British Council's research began conducted of the development of business skills in the creative industries and strategic sessions with representatives of university and the creative sector. After all, this podcast was created as part of the British Council's Creative Spark program.
Yes, all these products clearly strengthen the creative industries and affect the development of the ecosystem, which is the future will be reflected in the economy of Ukraine. In addition, we can see an increase in culture products in Ukraine, which have not only artistic but also business component. The development of creative potential affects not only the creative industries, but also other sectors of the economy.
I can only conclude that creativity is the key of economic development. Giovanna, do you agree with such an opinion?
There are many studies which show creativity is key to economic progress. Nowadays, it is understood that in order to be competitive and successful on the market, creativity is necessary. 8 in 10 people agree that creativity is critical to the economy, but only 1 in 4 people think they can achieve their creative potential. More than 70% of people believe creative thinking should be taught. Companies that foster creativity achieve higher revenue growth. Creative companies are more likely to be a market leader. Some studies show that creativity was thought to be the most important leadership quality. A demand for creativity in business is higher than ever. There are numerous resources and support for people wanting to start their own business. But applying creative thinking to the business model and strategies are not always straightforward, yet essential for future success. Creativity is a skill that can be taught, but sometimes people don't have the confidence, autonomy, or the environment to be creative. Nonetheless, it is recognized that fostering innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity translates into direct and tangible economic benefits. Whether we are talking about reinvention of existing products and services, adapting or influencing changing customer preferences, or innovating the business model, creativity is key. Ernst & Young have summarized it by saying, "We assume that 50% of the revenue in 5 years' time must come from sources that do not exist today."
By the way, our team has already researched creativity and created a podcast, Creativity for Creatives, which you can listen to on our channel. So, today you listened to a podcast on creative entrepreneurship from art to industry by Creative Spark Poltava, created as part of the British Council Higher Education Enterprise Program. In the next episode, Where Do Ideas Come From?, we will talk about creativity and methods of generating ideas. And today you were with Ina Pahomova, Alexander Ustyan and Giovanna Radulovic.